To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, we have no study session happening tonight. We do have several presentations. First is by Phil Penzel to the City of Cape Girardeau. Mr. Penzel, would you come on forward?
Good evening, Mayor Kinder,
Yeah.
Dr. Haskins, Cape Girardeau City Council. It's an honor to be here tonight, especially for the reason I'm here. Early August, I was contacted by Joy Coleman, who was our lead architect for this project here, the City Hall project. She wanted to submit this project to the Design Build Institute Hall of Fame projects. And as I was pulling together the information for this award, I realized that this was the last year of eligibility for the Sportsplex as well. So I decided, well, if we're going to submit this one, let's submit them both and see what happens. As luck would have it, we won both for both projects. So I want to present these tonight. The first one is for the Sportsplex. And can I bring this up for you to pass around?
Absolutely.
This is
yeah.
the handout that they had at the awards presentation.
Okay.
This project here was the first runner-up.
Say it in the microphone so everyone can hear it.
This project here was the first runner-up. The project that beat us out was actually in Birmingham, Alabama.
Ah.
So unfortunately, we didn't quite get the top prize. But there's two things that happened at that event. It was actually a pretty big deal. There's about 180 professionals there. And it was pretty stiff competition. They wouldn't tell us what we won, but until we got there. So, you know, there were two firsts. It's the first time that anybody won an award for the Design Build Institute of America, Mid-America region for Southeast Missouri, number one. And number two, it's the first time anybody walked out with two awards. So both of them are for the city of Cape, and I want to present both of them to you tonight. One of them is for the Merit Award for this project, the City Hall project. And then the other one, we were awarded early completion for the Sportsplex.
Oh.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to present these to you.
Let's come on around over here. You've kind of kept us under wraps, so I'm a little surprised and delighted, and want to turn the congratulations back to you, who deserves all the praise for the incredible facilities and the work. So
I will have
congratulations.
I have told many people throughout the last year and a half that this is the number one project of my career, and I think that it's probably the number one of our company history.
Oh, wonderful.
So we're very proud of this project, and we're proud to. This is the second award actually that we've won for this project.
No kidding.
And then the Sportsplex, we've won two other awards.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd like to lead you or all of us in a round of applause. Thank you.
This is for the city.
Well, do you get?
I got one.
Okay, good. All right.
And the architect got one.
Okay. Well, wonderful. This is amazing.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, thanks
very
so
much.
And I really appreciate the partnership with the head over to you. Do you want these?
Yeah, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. How they transported, that looks safe for the time being. If nobody makes any sudden movements or anything.
Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Okay, wow. Well, that was exciting. And unexpected, but well-deserved, as we heard. I wanted to bring up real quick, we had two more Citizen Academy graduates who were not able to be with us at our last meeting when we gave everyone a big hurrah and thank you and congratulations there. So if Tony Lane and Catherine Rapp are here and would come forward, we just want to say thank you all for your participation and your good work. These guys made it through 8 weeks of learning about the city, and we just want to thank you for your dedication and participation in that whole thing. And thank you for being great citizens. We don't have your certificates ready tonight, but we get a picture. Yeah, that's right. Can we scoot over just a touch? Oh, individual. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, and then let's go this way. Yep, that'll work. Perfect. Thank you all. Thank you. All right, next is communications or reports. Council, anything to report?
I'm just going to jump in, say the same thing I've said for years, is make sure that you keep yourself and your family, your health at foremost thought, especially throughout the holidays. So if it is vaccinating, boosting, socially distancing, wearing a mask, or washing your hands, which is highly recommended in any season of the year, please just make sure to keep your thoughts on the health of yourself and others. Other than that, I don't have any other reports.
Thank you. Any other things to report? Nobody? Okay. Moving on for items for discussion. Is there anyone in the audience here to appear as an advisory board applicant who might like to jump up to the podium and introduce yourself? All right, seeing none. Then we'll move into the consent agenda review. Dr. Haskin.
Mayor, thank you. Council, we have 2 items on for your review tonight. Both items actually are public improvements that we would like for you to approve. Number 6 is the public water system improvements for the new bridge, senior housing. We're excited about that moving forward. And of course, number 7, public improvements for the Cross Trails Medical Center as well. Remember, that concludes the new consent items for this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. We will move into regular session with a call to order. Mr. Taylor.
Mark Bliss. Here. Robbie Guard is absent. Stacy Kinder.
Here?
Dan Preston.
Here.
Tamika Randall.
Here.
Nate Thomas.
Here.
Shannon Drexel.
Here. All right, thank you. Council, we have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Or adopt the
Second.
agenda? Mr. Thomas, Mr. Preston, any discussion? All those in favor then of adoption of this agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, agenda carries. We have 2 public hearings before us tonight. First, I will open a public hearing to consider a request to rezone property located at the southwest corner of Lexington Avenue and Big Bend Road from R1, Single Family Suburban Residential District, to RUMD, Residential Urban Mixed Density District. This is bill number 22. This will be bill number 22-121 or 181 later. Is there anyone here to speak to this hearing? No? Yes. Yeah.
Megan Andrews. Do you need address as well?
Sure.
2845 Professional Court here in Cape Girardeau. I'm here to speak on behalf of it for BNC Properties, which is who actually sent in the request for the rezoning. So they purchased this property and they would like to, the reason why they went for the RUMD was because they would like to do a subdivision basically of duplexes. And then on another part of the property, they would like to put in multifamily. With the RUMD, it does limit what the multifamily would be versus the normal multifamily, where I think there's 18 units. It actually takes it down to 12 units. So it's a little bit smaller units. They want to do like a brick front. It's going to be very nice. They want to basically just incorporate all of that into that area. They think it'll be a good use of the area. They think that it will be really good for the economy down there and it'll open up a lot of new housing opportunities down there, especially for college students. It's not far from the university, so they're hoping to really market for college students. And then anybody else that may be related to the university, such as teachers or anything like that. They're going to be very specific in how they market their building and who they're marketing to in regards to making sure that they keep the area very nice, especially being by around R1 districts. So they're simply asking for the rezoning request. Nothing's in front of anybody yet in regards to exactly what they're going to do, but I just wanted to share that with you so you knew what their plans were in the future. Other than that, I know there was some opposition in the P&Z committee, but in regards to some of that, just to address those concerns ahead of time, there was concerns in regards to the Legend apartments. Our clients actually called the Legend, spoke with them in regards to why there were some issues there. It's my understanding that they always only usually had residential students that were from the college. When COVID hit and all of those students were no longer down here, they had to open up and rent to I guess, some people that they weren't normally used to renting to. I think it brought in some not so savory characters. All of that is gone now. They have a new manager there, and they're making sure that they're vetting people and they're making sure for the safety of that area that they're getting really good quality renters in there. So I think hopefully that will address itself. We don't think that has any bearing to this, but I know there were some concerns in regards to crime in the Legends area. There is some buffering. Our clients are already going to agree to put in some nice buffering. I believe the P&Z committee, there is one resident that actually lives between Legends and will live between this if it's approved. They've already agreed. He wanted a 6-foot wrought iron fence up. They said they're happy to do that as well to keep it in compliance with what he asked for at the P&Z committee. They have no problem with that. I believe they actually personally went and met with him and spoke with him to let him know kind of what they were doing there. So they've been very forthcoming. They're trying, to put something nice in the area. So they're simply asking for that classification because they would like to do both the duplexes, which would be a nice area, and then also do the residential. There will also be multiple entrances and exits to this area. So if you looked at it, there are going to be different exits off different streets. So if there's a concern about street traffic or extra cars in this area, they're trying to address that by having different routes to come in and out of the subdivision, even connecting the multifamily to the duplexes so they can go through that subdivision and out, or you can go through here and out on another street. So they're trying to address all those concerns as well. That's not really at issue today, but I just wanted to be pretty thorough with the board so you guys know, council, what's going on with it. So we would ask for you guys to approve the rezoning. Any questions for me or anything at this time?
I just want to say, so this is obviously right in the middle of Ward 1, which is the ward that I represent. I've heard a lot of different things from people that are concerned about traffic, and so that's great to hear that as well. One thing that I hear from our neighborhood, and it's not related to college housing, is the need for 55 plus places for people to live. Safe areas that are, for that age range and higher. People are looking for quality options. And so I'm excited to see this type of development, this type of investment in Ward 1, because I think it'll actually really benefit some of our citizens and bring more citizens into Ward 1. Just because we need some of that more modern housing. So thank you.
And that's what those duplexes are mainly for too. They're the one level and they're going to be roughly about 1,400 square feet. So there'll be a nice, duplex area for people to live in with a couple of bedrooms.
Nice. Fantastic.
Did your client share what their price point was for these units?
They don't know yet because some of that price point is, I'm out of time. Can I
You can
address the question?
Please, Anna, go ahead. Nancy, yeah.
They're not exactly sure exactly what that's going to be just yet. Part of that is going to be based on the pricing of what it's going to take to build them. They don't have that yet because until the rezoning's approved, they won't have their official plans. So some of that will be based on that, but they're going to try to make it at least affordable too for like the college student that's coming in. But I can't exactly speak to the exact price point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, is there anyone else to speak?
I got just a question for everyone. I mean, it sounds great in that, but strategically, what about are you gonna have to reallocate resources from the police department and the rescue team with more people coming in? Just putting that out there to think about. I mean, nothing against it. I'm just thinking forward.
I would say that's probably not pertinent to this discussion tonight, only because this is a rezoning question
Okay.
rather than there will be in the future, this issue will come, the exact development will come back to present, the plans.
All right.
Did I answer that correctly? Yeah. Yeah, tonight is and this is down under new ordinances. Tonight is to discuss just simply the question of rezoning that property. And so we did get some details about the thoughts, but they haven't finalized their plans yet. And but that will all come before the council as well. So, anyone else to speak to this? Yes, sir. And if you would, please share your name.
I'm Carl Atkins. I live at 133 East Cape Rock Drive. For those of you in the Cape Girardeau area who are not familiar with this area other than Dan Presson, Big Bend Road at that area is very narrow. It is mostly well-maintained, but it is very narrow. There are large ditches on either side. Just a caution to the city, because I think improvements and more housing and so forth, anything that we can do to increase the revenue and the beauty of Cape Girardeau, I think is great. However, if that increase causes problems, so before these considerations are taken, the city needs to consider what the ramifications are going to be. Is there going to have to be a wider road? Is there going to have to be at least a turn lane to go into these areas? Is there going to have to be a stoplight of some form where Lexington comes into Big Bend? All of these things need to be considered, and not just the ramifications of these considerations, but also the money that the city will have to expend in order to make these areas available and safe for these changes. I'm in favor of the changes, provided the city goes about it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just add to that all of what you just mentioned is a part of the normal process when development occurs in the city, for sure. So thank you. Anyone else to speak to this? Okay, I will close that public hearing then and open the second public hearing, which is to consider a proposed amendment to Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, regarding the CBD, Central Business District. Is there anyone to speak to that?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City Manager. I am Stephen Hoffman, and I am coordinator of the Historic Preservation Program at Southeast Missouri State University. And I am also on the board of Old Town Cape. And I'm here to speak in support of the proposed changes to the CBD design standards, both the clarification of the administrative review process currently in place and the addition of requiring a certificate of appropriateness for demolition or for the exterior alterations listed. These standards are key to maintaining the historic character of our downtown, which is one of our most important economic and cultural assets. The city's comprehensive plan highlights the need to enhance the community's social and cultural vibrancy. Maintaining the character of our downtown commercial districts is essential to the goals of downtown improvement and tourism expansion. The plan specifically mentions residents expressing a desire for more attention being paid to historic preservation and city beautification. The plan also identifies workforce retention and recruitment as a priority concern and specifically mentions the community's character and charm as reflected in the historic downtown as being an important feature in terms of recruitment and retention. There are solid economic reasons for supporting the changes to the CBD design standards in support of achieving these larger goals. We have over 30 years of research from across the country in small towns and large, showing that districts with design review have higher property values, have fewer foreclosures, retain value in declining markets, and emerge more quickly on the rebound. And why is that? Nobody wants to pay more for the privilege of having somebody tell them what they can do or not do with their property. But what they do pay more for is knowing that their crazy neighbors aren't going to be able to do something that will reduce the value of their own property. And the results are in study after study, properties and districts with the kinds of review contained in our revised CBD standards consistently outperform buildings of a similar age in districts without these controls. Another economic reason for supporting these revised standards relates to heritage tourism. Numerous studies show that heritage tourists stay longer and spend more money than other types of tourists, such as sports tourists. Cape Girardeau has invested a lot in its sports tourism industry, and that's great. I'm a big fan, and it's great for us. But studies show that communities actually get more bang for their buck by investing in our heritage tourism industries. And what heritage tourists want to see is a downtown district with historic character. And that's exactly what these standards are designed to protect. Lastly, and I think most of you know, I could go on all night about this, but I promised Ryan I'd be brief. There is a lot of evidence to suggest that place attachment is key to attracting and retaining talent. People more readily form attachment to places with a high degree of historic character, and those attachments are stronger than to generic kinds of spaces. Nobody fell in love with Cape Girardeau and to make their life here because of the charm and character of the Target parking lot. And again, nothing against Target or any of our other big box retailers. We need them too. But people do fall in love with our downtown and everything that gives it its charm and character. And as I said, I could go on all night about the economic and social value of maintaining the character of what remains of our beautiful downtown districts. But the central point I'm trying to convey is that these proposed changes to our design standards are just the sort of thing we need to be doing if we are going to maintain the character that makes our community distinctive. And if we can do that, we will better achieve the goals set forth in the city's comprehensive plan, and we will all enjoy a more prosperous community and a higher quality of life. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffman.
I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but it has my full support.
I actually do have one question. The decision to bring this to council now, is that as a result of changes that were made to the character and charm in the recent past, or is it just to adopt similar laws that protect the character and charm of cities with similar historical presence?
I think, and Ryan can probably speak more directly to this, but my understanding is it's a couple of different reasons. One is part of the changes are to clarify the process and just kind of make it clear how we're doing it. But the other piece, and really the asking for a certificate of appropriateness, is to enhance the ability to control some of the changes that the standards as they exist don't do effectively. And really that has to do with painting buildings that are unpainted and the current trend of painting them entirely black. And so Ryan shared with the Historic Preservation Commission kind of a series of buildings that have been all painted entirely black. And if you have one of those, that's probably fine. You start getting 5 or 6, you start getting that in significant quantities, then it's a detrimental effect to the district as a whole. And so it wasn't something that was necessarily in people's minds when those original standards were developed. They discouraged painting unpainted brick. This is a little more forceful with that. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak during the public hearing of this topic? Yes, sir.
Anyone else wants to speak?
Yes, would you please come forward?
But not about this agenda.
No, about this public hearing?
No,
Okay. There'll be time for other.
but I have something to bring up.
Okay, great. We'll get to you, I promise. Okay. We will move on to the consent agenda. If you would, Mr. Young, please read that.
Bill 22-177, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment and partial release of a license and indemnity agreement with CWC Hospitality LLC for Cape West Crossings in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 22-177, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment and partial release of a license and indemnity agreement with CWC Hospitality LLC for Cape West Crossings in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 22-179, an ordinance appropriating monies for payment of employee compensation for services to be rendered during the remainder of the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023 in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Bill 22-179, an ordinance appropriating monies for payment of employee compensation for services to be rendered during the remainder of the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023 in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
Thank you. Council, we have a consent agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Truxell, Mr. Bliss, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Consent agenda is passed. We have one item removed from the consent agenda. That is Bill number 22-180, a resolution selecting KCI Construction Incorporated to design and construct a new passenger terminal building at the Cape Girardeau Regional Airport and authorizing the negotiation of an agreement to be presented to the City Council for approval. Ms. Amos, would you please let us know what you got?
Sure. Good evening. First, how much time do we have? I mean, as you
Plenty.
can see, we've got a pretty thick packet, so I want to make sure we can cover
There's a lot of
everything.
numbers in that, yes.
Well,
Maybe
we've
the condensed
condensed it. First, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to speak to you this evening concerning this very important project for the Cape Girardeau Regional Airport. I have with me today several people that were involved in this selection process. I have Burns and McDonnell. I have Jody Cooper, who's our program manager, Dan Weiss, who's also a program manager and has been assisting us with this process. I also have several members from our advisory board, including Chairman Richard Note, who also was a part of the selection team, along with Amy Ferris, myself, Jeff Bruni, and then again, the crew from Burns and McDonnell. This is a very important project, like I just mentioned, and so we have taken a lot of time to make sure that we get this right. Because we know that the future of our airport depends on making sure that this is the facility that can take us forward. So if you look at the first screen there, you'll see the rendering that was put together in the basis of design. This was the very first concept that we pitched and showed to the community as to what we were hoping we would be able to construct once we finish this project. So we had a lot of support, and so we were very secure in the fact that we wanted to move forward with this kind of design. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of the selection process, I kind of wanted to talk to you all about a couple topics. We'll go into the timeline of the selection process, the proposal overview, the FAA concurrence, and then next steps, okay? So just to kind of give you guys an idea, this project has been ongoing since about 2018 when we first approached you all with a facilities needs list. It was identified that we needed a new terminal, new T hangars, and various other projects. So we are on the fast track to making some of those improvements now. Taxiway Bravo is under construction, and now we're wanting to move forward with the terminal project. So in 2021, the terminal area master plan was completed. We moved forward with selecting Burns and McDonnell as our owner's representative. We had to create complete the environmental study, and then we wanted to move forward with the basis of design and then the selection process, which is where we are today, finalizing that selection process. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jody Cooper, and she's going to kind of give you guys a behind the scenes guide as to how we arrived at our conclusion. So Jody.
Thank you. Well, lower the mic a little bit. I'm a little bit shorter, but thank you, council, for having us. Again, I'm Jody Cooper, the program manager for Burns & McDonnell Engineering. We're acting as the owner's representative for this project and many others in this program. Dan, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Dan Weiss, Burns & McDonnell, Aviation Group, just supporting Jody.
Thanks. Thank you. So we'll go on to the next slide here and discuss more of the timeline of this selection process. So I won't go through every bubble on this page, but I do want to highlight a couple of items from this page. So first and foremost, there was the initial qualifications and proposal period. And unfortunately, we only received one proposal during that time frame. We would have loved to have moved forward with that. In fact, we tried to with the FAA, but they did reject that. The reason being is this Title 49 U.S. Code 47142. And what it states is that if you are using grant money from the federal government and you're using the design build procurement process, you do have to have at least 3 bids to conduct a fair assessment. So we had to go into a second proposal period. When we did that, we did receive 5 proposals, so that was fantastic. We shortlisted 3 from there, and we were able to move along this timeline. And then the final item I want to mention from this sheet is the best and final offer period. It was not originally included in our RFQ process. We did add it based on necessity. We determined when we received all the pricing proposals that each one had an irregularity. So instead of rejecting all proposals, we decided to give them 7 more days to refine, and then we moved on from there. So we'll go through each submission now. I'll just talk about the highlights. You do have packets there in front of you in a blue book, and I will be referencing tabs in that packet just so you can see what I'm referring to. So first and foremost was Robinson Industrial and Heavy Contracting. They submitted a qualifications and technical proposal packet, just like all the others that were shortlisted. Their strengths included technical approach, their schedule. They were able to hit the schedule end date that is required by the FAA, which is June 2024, to get the project completely finished. Their teaming structure was also a strength of theirs. A weakness that I wanted to note was their city benefit. They did note that they would provide a benefit to the city. They just did not entail in that package what that would be. Their overall score at that point was 121.6 out of 140. In their interview process, they provided many details, and the evaluation committee determined that although they did provide a lot of information about their company themselves, they did not provide enough detail about the project at hand. That was a downfall for them in terms of points. They did, again, talk about that end date and how they would achieve that. And then finally, they did state they would follow the basis of design as developed by Burns & McDonnell and Wellner Architects, but they did not go into great depth there either. So they were awarded 7.8 points out of 10. And then finally, if you'll flip to tab 1 in your blue book, you can see their pricing proposal. And they did come in at $19.1 million. And something I want to note there is that the guaranteed maximum price that the city had decided upon and that we published in the RFQP was $12 million for this project. So they substantially exceeded that by $7.1 million. So that was determined to be an irregularity. And they also did not include any itemization of costs that you'll see there in that book. So moving on to the best and final offer, they did eliminate the cost by about $2 million. So they were able to achieve that. and they did provide a strong narrative on their value engineering. So they did get docked quite a few. They were awarded 22.1 out of 50. They did not provide building elevations to share, unfortunately. That was another reason for the docking of some points. Moving on to KCI Construction. Their qualifications and technical proposal was comparable to Robinson. They had strengths that were, just the same. Their qualifications were well-versed. They had a lot of experience in aviation and in design build. They also met the schedule of end date of June 2024. Their weaknesses is the familiarity with geographic location. They are out of Springfield, Missouri, so it is a short jog over to Cape Girardeau, but they did not have as much experience in this area. They also did not elaborate on the city benefits, so they were docked some there as well. So their overall score for this phase was 118.4 out of 140. Their interview went above and beyond any that we saw that day. So I do want to note that first. Their team came in, they had 4 different companies on their team. They were extremely cohesive. They all had thoroughly developed designs as far as each of the disciplines went. They brought in material samples. It was just overall a well-received interview. They discussed their construction end date of June 2024, which again is a vital part of this project. And their basis of design requirements were met. They recited many that we had written in the RFQ piece, so we knew that they had a thorough understanding of the BOD. And then finally, they provided a unique exterior development design, and I will be showing you that on the next sheet. And we thought that's very important to the community to have this beautiful gateway to your city. So they were awarded 9.6 out of 10. And as far as the pricing proposal, they did come in about $2 million over the GMP. That was an irregularity. Again, as I mentioned, the requirement was $12 million GMP. And they had also listed a few unbalanced numbers in their itemization. But in tab 2 there, you'll see that their itemized costs are much more developed than Robinson. And you'll also see that's much more developed than the Penzel submission as well. And then the best and final, they were able to shave off about $2 million from their budget. Very substantial, but comparable to Robinson. If you recall before, they shaved off about $2 million. And they were able to add some great narrative on their value engineering, which led us to believe that they had done, a fantastic job in the 7 days they were allotted. They were given 47.9 points out of 50. And then finally, here are the renderings from KCI Construction. The top photo is the east elevation as you would come in off of Godwin Drive and park in the parking lot. And below that is the east elevation from the apron with that nice welcome to Cape Girardeau annotation on the wall there. Finally, we'll go over Penzel quickly. Their strengths included their qualifications. We just heard from Phil himself. They've done many successful design build projects in the area. And the evaluation committee did find that their qualifications and their technical proposals were above and beyond the others. And the only thing that was a weakness was their schedule. So they originally submitted a schedule that ended in January of 2025. And the FAA has made it clear that if we exceed that schedule, we could lose funding. So their total score, though, they still got first place in step 1, and they were awarded 123.5 out of 140. Thank you. Their interview is next, and the evaluation committee determined that their detail was adequate, but it did not measure up to the KCI delivery. They were a little disjointed in the beginning of their presentation during the interview, and they were lacking some design detail. They had several cases of variation from the basis of design. Why that is important is because that basis of design was developed by the owner's rep team and then approved by the FAA. And that was decided early on. So those were requirements that they had to meet. So unfortunately, they had some variations. Finally, the renderings of the exterior were not favored by the evaluation committee, and you'll see that in the next couple of slides. Their score in this step was 8.9 out of 10. Finally, their pricing proposal, they did submit a budget of $12 million, which was fantastic. They hit the GMP right on the nose. They did have irregularity and ambiguity, and that included the lack of itemized costs. You'll see that in tab 3. They did have totals for each of their schedules, but they were lacking the items such as what KCI provided. That's typically what we look for, and that's what was required in the RFQP. They did not include in-depth design details as both Robinson and KCI had provided. And then they exceeded that construction end date. By this time, they had moved their construction end date up to November 2024, but it still exceeded our end date by 6 months, or 5 months rather. So their best and final offer, the things I want to point out first is that they did improve their exterior design, and they made it a more appealing exterior from curbside, so more aesthetically pleasing. And they did shorten their schedule to hit the June of 2024 end date. However, it was not reflected in their budget summary, and the evaluation committee found this to be problematic. Theoretically, it should have heavily impacted that, both of those substantial changes. So they were docked for those reasons. They still had ambiguity in terms of itemized costs, so they were given 39 points out of 50. And then here are the renderings from Pennzoil. On the left side, you'll see the elevations from their technical proposal. And then on the right side was their best and final offer. Again, I want to mention it's more aesthetically pleasing, but they did not reflect it in their budget. Before I get into the recommendation slide, I did just want to make sure everyone was aware that the airport board did unanimously approve of the recommendation, as many of you are aware, and the FAA has verbally given their concurrence as well. We're waiting on their letter, but they have verbally given their concurrence. And then finally, the final composite scores for each team are listed here. You see KCI came out ahead by about 4 points, a little over 4 points. And I just want to end on KCI brings to the table a cohesive team and already developed design. They're working in accordance with the BOD requirements, and they've presented a beautiful gateway for the community. So Burns McDonnell does recommend awarding to KCI Construction for the GMP of $12,016,053. And they're the final renderings. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question, but more for not for these, for great people. More for sure. Andrew Ostrowski, it's more for, not for them, they did, well, more for the city. Does the city have, since, where we live and we got New Madrid Fault down there, does the city have codes for reinforcement for building because of the earthquake zone? That's my question, that's all.
I want to assure everyone that we have earthquake codes for all of our building. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Does anyone else in the audience care to make a comment on the issue? Okay. Hearing none then, council, is there a motion to approve bill number 22-180?
So moved.
Mr. Preston, Mr. Bliss, discussion. This is where we might.
No, please.
Maybe a couple questions for Katrina, just a couple questions. I know how the processes work, and I know the expertise that the airport bring in consulting. Have any of these construction companies ever built any terminals before? This would be the first one for most of them, or some of them have experiences building terminals? Yeah,
Out
so.
of the three of them.
So I believe Robinson has built similar facilities. I don't think any of them had ever constructed a
Okay.
terminal
Okay.
facility. There were parts of their team. So as a design build team, you have an architect, you have various people that come on board. So there was some experience on each team with design and building of a terminal. But from the construction team standpoint, no. But they've built heavy construction, and so they're familiar with that aspect.
Okay. Other question, I was curious about the city benefit. Like nobody really hit that mark. Was it something the evaluation committee was really looking for where they said, making sure they have understanding of the city benefit? And is it still feel like you still feel like it's meeting the needs of the city based off that criteria that was kind of questioned?
Yeah, just
Okay.
making sure that, the city was pretty, we spent a lot of time putting together that basis of design. It took months. And so making sure that all of those markers, those requirements that we wanted to have reflected in the facility were hit within the design. That was important to us, as well as making sure they met all of the requirements necessary by the FAA. This is different than, the City Hall project and where it's our, what we want, and, no one else is really involved to a certain standpoint. But from a regulatory standpoint, and then federal dollars, the FAA has a lot of involvement in this process. So we wanted to make sure that we had their buy-in from the very beginning.
I just have one other question. That 12 million mark, that won't, even with inflation and everything, that won't be a hindrance in any form of fashion based off that last.
So, it's a
Okay.
concern. I'm not
Okay.
going to pretend like it's
Okay.
not. We are going to work through that. And that's what the design charrette process is for, is to really drill down into the design, make sure that all the components that we want to incorporate are included, and things that we can remove to make sure we maintain that GMP. We'll work through that process. But I think, we feel pretty confident about where we are. We've had some preliminary conversations, and we feel like we can hit that number with no problem.
This great work. I just want to look clarity, but you guys did an awesome job.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
The level of extensive research.
Can you speak to the fact that, as I understand from attending the airport board meetings, that there is actually an airport manager, I believe from Joplin, who is
Yes.
on the project team? And can you speak to that and how important that is from your perspective in this project?
We were extremely impressed by the KCI team. And to Jody's point, the cohesiveness of what they brought to that interview was, it was just phenomenal. And we were all blown away. What they bring to the table is expertise from an airport manager perspective, not just someone that's a consultant, but an end user who's been through this process. He's constructed a terminal of his own. So he understands the requirements from an FAA perspective, TSA compliance, those types of things. So that expertise, that institutional knowledge, it is important and critical to this type of project.
Just have a quick question. On behalf of individuals with disabilities and service animals, I don't see in any of the proposals, service animal relief area.
No, it is in there. That is a
Okay.
requirement of our
Okay.
basis of design.
And
And that was one of the irregularities in one of the proposals and why they were docked points.
Okay.
Because they did not have a SAR area in the facility.
Okay.
That is a requirement by the FAA, by
Okay.
the way.
Would that be outside of security or inside?
It'll be inside.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I had two questions. One of them was to the point of, from the initial proposal from KCI to their best and final, the decrease is of $2 million is not an insignificant amount, and over 16% of their initial proposal. Can you speak to what they shaved off, or how they were able to get down to that target? What did they have in their first one and not in their second one?
So sure, and that kind of speaks to the point that Jody made about how comprehensive their pricing proposal was, because they had all of the materials, the various finishes. So it's simply, in our basis of design, we wanted limestone, we wanted certain types of materials. They decreased that type of material, so it's still comparable and it's still quality finishes, but maybe not to the same cost as some of the more higher finishes. So they really touched on that, and they were able to drill down even further on some of those items that we could even make other exceptions and maybe go with another type of material as opposed to what was included in the basis of design.
Then was it taken into consideration with all the proposals, I'm sure, but I don't think it was spoken on their strengths and weaknesses, but the potential for growth, future growth in their design. And if we were able to add on or grow, and if their design allowed for that, was that taken into consideration?
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so important. And Jody, please feel free to chime in. But, our basis of design really does speak to that. When we developed the terminal area master plan, that was planning for the next 20 to 30 years, right? So when you take that terminal area master plan and we incorporated that into the basis of design, it was important for each team to really utilize that basis of design for their design. And that was where some of the teams struggled, is that they did not incorporate the basis of design that would keep us with the mindset of growth and development for that project and for the terminal.
Perfect. Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys and the board. This is not a passive board to be on. It's a very fun time to be a
very
part of it
active.
and big changes. And I know you guys put in a lot of work, and I want to thank you guys for that. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo that. When I first got on the council in 2018, that this cranked up. I mean, it's been a 4-year plus discussion. So thanks to all of you on the advisory board and
Yes.
certainly Katrina, your whole team and everyone involved. It's been a big deal, and something that I think our community is really going to be happy about, and not just our community, but anyone flying in and out of Cape Girardeau. So that'll be
Yeah,
great.
and if I may, I'd like to thank our advisory board as well. They have been critical. I mean, this entire year, I've been with the airport now 15 years, and there's been times where it's like you're reporting on the monthly activity and then you go home. They have been very active, engaged, and they've been extremely helpful in these decisions. So I'm very grateful to our advisory board.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, we have a motion before us. Without any other discussion, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make
It's already been made.
Okay.
Sorry, we just need to take a vote. All those in favor of Bill number 22-180, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That bill carries. Congratulations. Okay, we have a few more new ordinances, and we will follow, for those of you in the audience, we'll follow the procedure we just used. A staff member will describe what we're talking about, and there will be, at that time, if anyone wants to comment or question on the ordinance, you may come to the podium and do so, and then the council will discuss after that. So first, we have Bill 22-181, an ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, by changing the zoning of property located at the southwest corner of Lexington Avenue and Big Bend Road in the city and county of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, from R1 to RUMD. First reading. Mr. Shrimplin.
Good evening. So Ms. Andrews already gave you an overview of the developer's intentions for the property. They would like to develop it for a combination of duplexes and apartments. From a staff standpoint, most of the area is zoned single-family residential. However, you do have the Legends to the west, which is zoned multifamily. And also from just the existing land uses, most of it's single-family, but you do have the apartments at the Legends. The city's future land use map does recommend high-density residential uses for this property. The RMD district is actually more of a medium-density residential because it provides for duplexes and lesser intensive residential uses. So it's consistent with comprehensive plan. And as Councilman Preston noted, there's a need for additional housing, particularly in Ward 1. Obviously, you can't make any guarantees that this will be available for seniors, but it certainly sounds like it could be a possibility.
I did have a question. As a part of this development, right, they'll have to put sidewalks in
Yes.
there? Okay.
Yeah, the code requires sidewalks as a default unless there aren't any sidewalks within 500 feet or if there's topographical constraints. There's a few exceptions to it, but the general rule is sidewalks required.
Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to comment or have a question about this ordinance? Ms. Bill? Okay, hearing none then. Is there a motion to approve Bill number 22-181?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Preston, Mr. Thomas. Discussion.
Ryan, I hate to put you on the spot like this, but can you think of any other RUMDs that have been completed?
Other RUMD districts?
Yes.
There's several. They aren't in Ward 1, I don't think.
Yeah.
But we've got some over on Bellevue Street, a little closer to downtown. Part of my challenge and my task is, when a property owner or developer approaches me, they have an idea. That's my duty, is to look through the code to see what kind of zoning districts would be appropriate. I found RMD to be very helpful. It's a newer district. It was incorporated with the update to the zoning code in 2010. Before that, we didn't have a district like that, but it's very flexible. It allows single family, duplex, townhouses, and multifamily. And so when you've got a developer that wants to do a combination of those two, like apartments and duplexes, that really is the best fit.
Cool. Thanks.
So there've been just a couple questions. Just real briefly, if you could describe the process. Tonight, we're talking about the zoning, whether that's appropriate or not. And
Yes.
then in the future, there will be more discussion about sidewalks or
Yes.
in and outs and
Yes.
all of that. Yeah.
Yes.
That'll be subject for approval.
So Ms. Andrews mentioned that the developer may end up subdividing a part of the property for duplexes. So if that does happen, they'll have to go through the subdivision process first. As part of that, they'd probably have to extend water and sewer mains and make public improvements. So that process would have to happen. And then the rest of it is just applying for the permits, the stormwater and grading permits and building permits. And that's where the city does its plan review, looks at the code and sees what's required, makes comments on the plans, and then the plans have to be revised until they can be approved, and then they can get their permits.
Any other questions, council? All right, we have bill number 22-181 before us. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have bill 22-182, an ordinance amending chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri regarding CBD Central Business District. First reading, Mr. Shrimplin.
So again, Dr. Hoffman kind of prefaced this with a very eloquent kind of explanation of the value that our downtown provides to our community. It has, the tourism benefit, the economic benefit, the cultural benefit. Downtown is an exciting place now. There's all sorts of events that we host downtown, and there's many more that I think are going to come in the future. We've got a great Main Street organization in Old Town Cape that's really charged with supporting the downtown, the businesses, and sponsoring the events, and also helping with filling vacancies. And they even have a design committee. So they really look, comprehensively at our downtown and efforts to support it. They do support this particular amendment. Councilwoman Truxell, to answer your question, the discussions that staff have had about this have been going on for a while now. Part of it has been based on observations of changes that have been made to buildings in recent years. There's nothing specifically wrong about painting a building black. That just happens to be the trend right now. What I'm more concerned about is just the kind of the homogeneous effect that can have if you have several buildings in a downtown block that are painted all in the same color, regardless of what that color is. That can have an adverse effect on the character of the district. And the same thing with demolishing a building. A few years ago, I was told by a contractor that somebody was looking at buying a block of buildings downtown and demolishing it on Broadway. And so that could have a profound effect on the downtown character and other, can domino into other effects for the city. So what this is really doing is just setting up a vetting process for some of these types of changes that could potentially have adverse impacts. It's not a prohibition on anything. It's just bringing it to the expertise of the Historic Preservation Commission because they're used to reviewing these types of applications on their locally designated landmark and historic district properties. So it's really just a way to kind of make sure that things don't get out of hand essentially with our downtown. I'm very mindful of property owners' rights, but I think we'd all agree that, what you do to your building in your own neighborhood or out on Seamers Drive is a little different than what you do to a downtown building in terms of the effect it can have on the community and the value.
Do you foresee this being something that would it slow down a process for somebody that wants to develop a building? Would it kind of be going on subsequent with other permitting items?
Yes, we're very good at allowing plans to be reviewed while something's going through a particular approval process. Subdivisions, for example, even rezoning. The inspections office has been very good about intaking plans and doing the review and issuing comments. They just won't issue the permits until the approval is obtained. So generally, our developers have found that to be a reasonable compromise.
Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to question or comment on this bill? No? Okay. Council, then, is there a motion to approve Bill?
Second.
Okay. Further discussion. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut that off.
I do like to make note, I serve on a couple committees with Ryan. He's very diligent about the work at the city hall. And then also making sure we understand that process, even myself with Old Town Cape. And they are very prideful in understanding the processes of making sure they're doing their best to enhance the city. Even economic development, I think Old Town Cape do a lot of underlying things that's not on their contract to help enhance the city. So I think, Ryan, you've been like a great asset. I'm hoping I back you, but I think it's a good idea that people understand that we have processes and things should be vetted. So it can be a certain standard of quality of how we want to represent our city and when we send our message out. So thank you for that, Ryan. And Dr. Hoffman. Okay.
I'd like to add that I know from the letter we've received that Old Town Cape has expressed strong support for this ordinance. And having previously served on the Historic Preservation Commission, I think this is something that is overdue. And I think it will be a tremendous asset to the community, keeping our old buildings. And, that's kind of what makes Cape Girardeau different than some other city. And I think it's vital that we preserve the landscape.
Just to clarify, you mentioned demolition before, and that's kind of mentioned in the wording here, but this bill the issues are separate from the city demolition process when there's abandoned buildings or.
Yes, I think you're referring to condemnation.
Condemnation, is it?
This
Yeah.
amendment specifically accepts and excludes condemnation
Right.
when the city causes a building to be demolished,
Right.
that this does not run afoul of that.
Yep. This is the situation where the crazy neighbor, we don't officially have any crazy neighbors in Cape Girardeau, by the way, but just hypothetically, it's just trying to, in this particular area of town, trying to encourage a bit more, what's
Right.
the word?
I mean, in the example I used, if someone wanted to tear down a full block or a half block on Broadway, as opposed to, something down at, further down, in an area that isn't on a main corridor, maybe it's just an
Isn't thought of
old,
to be
industrial
historic or-
building or
yeah.
something like
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
that's totally different.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from council? All right, hearing none then. All in favor of Bill number 22-182, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Next is Bill number 22-183, an ordinance accepting a permanent utility easement from Rhodes Properties, LC, for property located at 1701 North Kings Highway in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. First reading. Ms. Brunke.
Good evening. So this utility easement is for the new McDonald's that went in at the corner of Kings Highway and Mount Auburn. It's been there for a while. We've been working with the developer who has been working with corporate McDonald's to get through some language on the easement. Everyone has agreed. So we're very excited to actually bring the easement to y'all tonight.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? No, hearing none then. Council, is there a motion to approve 22-183?
Second.
Mr. Preston, Ms. Truxell, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor then of Bill 22-183, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. And bill number 22-184, an ordinance accepting 2 permanent water line easements from John A. Hoyer and New Bridge Properties LLC for property located at 1205 South Mount Auburn Road in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. First reading.
So basically, the other end of town at Mount Auburn in South Kings Highway, there is a new senior housing development going in down there at the corner. They had to extend a water main to serve that facility, and these easements cover that water main extension.
Okay. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to comment? Seeing none, then council, is there a motion to approve Bill 22-184?
So move.
Mr. Thomas, Mr. Preston, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor then, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion carries. We do not have any appointments before us tonight. Under other business, this is the time when citizens may register to speak to something that is not on the agenda for tonight. We have had 3 citizens pre-register to do that. First is Ms. Cynthia Durgan.
Hello again. I'm Cynthia Durgan. I live at 2824 Oakshire Circle in Cape Girardeau. And I'm here to address yet again the way city ordinances trap homeless people into breaking the law just to survive. Sleeping in an empty building or camping on private land is trespassing. You don't want people to do that. But overnighting on any public land in the city breaks a city ordinance. I want people doing that. So I want you to each ask yourself, if you're in that position, what are you supposed to do? This situation is a logical and legal absurdity. And the city cannot keep pretending that this is a legitimate way to legislate. I understand that in the past, it may have been legitimate to think that homelessness was just a charity problem. You got to get with the times. Those days are gone, dead, past, evaporated. They are no more. If you don't believe me, read some of the journals that Dr. Haskin reads. This is a civic issue, and you are a city. What are you going to do? Next time you're a little chilly and you turn up the temperature in your house, I want you to think about somebody who doesn't have a thermometer, doesn't have a thermoregulator thing, doesn't have a wall, doesn't have a roof, doesn't have a house, doesn't have any place to go without breaking your law. Get with it. I've heard concerns that there might be legal liability in having homeless people allowed to camp on any of the 661 acres of city property. You're worried about that legal liability? Listen, there are legal liability questions if you continue to force people to break a law to survive. I say again, it is a moral outrage. It is a legal absurdity, and I will be speaking with my lawyers on Wednesday.
Thank you for your time. Is Ms. Nussbaum present? Nancy Nussbaum? Nancy Nussbaum? Okay. Not present. And then third, we had Pete Hertz register. Sir, come forward.
I've been waiting all evening.
Well, I know, and I'm sorry.
I'm sorry I didn't bring any plaques or printouts for you to see.
That is
Only
not a
thing I brought-
requirement for you to get to.
I did
to
bring
speak.
one thing though, and that's a complaint.
Well,
We are the
we've been
Hertzes and we
waiting.
live at 7 Robert Street.
Yes, sir.
7 Robert Street has one address. That's ours. The rest of it, there's no address on Robert Street. It dead ends, goes through a little woods, then we live on a street and then another woods. But back in the early or late 60s, my mother and my father-in-law gravelled the street, spread it out. City didn't give him any money. He didn't ask for any. He done it so they can get out and driving through mud. Now, the reason I'm here, which is over 50 years later, I live in that house. Me and my wife did all kinds of improvements in it because you know a house that's 60 years old is going to have improvements. We owe more and we paid more for that home and improvements than what it's worth. It has a beautiful view of the river. I can see the bridge, we can see the lights, we can see everything. Now, my complaint is between Hill Street and the B&N Railroad, there's about 5 acres. I estimate to be about 5-acre plot. The guy bought that, brought in a track hoe, took down all the trees, and there was 2 or 3 buildings on it, and he burned everything up. It was flat. But at the north end of that plot is probably 15 to 20 foot deep. 2 or 3 months ago, when the city, or not the city, the casino started building their hotel, they tore up the concrete, and that's where the concrete went. It's in that field, and that's fine. Now, they're hauling in dirt, and they've been doing that for weeks or months. But when it rains, guess what happens when you drive on dirt? Matter of fact, one of the dump trucks got in there, it was buried up to its axle. They have 2 track hoes out there, and that's how they, not track hoes, but bulldozers, that's how they got it out. They dump in about 25 to 30 loads of dirt a day, and then they spread it out. And that's fine. Then he brought in gravel after that guy got stuck, and that's all mudded down into the mud and the dirt. And guess what? It's all on Hill Street. The gravel's up around Rand Street. It's up on Johnson Street. And if, you know, and at least once a week I have to wash my car because the dust, when it doesn't rain, the dust comes up, blows up, and you get it all over your car, all over your house, get it everywhere. And then you can't drive down the street because it's mud and gravel. My daughter come a while ago and said, well, that's nice driving on a gravel road. I ain't coming back. And we got another friend said she wasn't driving on that road until they washed it. I can tell you who's responsible for it. One name just showed up on that printer a while ago. This pen is spelled P-E-N-Z-E-L. I guess you pronounce it Penzel. Now we're just one family. There's like 8 houses up there, and 2 of them haven't been lived in since I've been there, and that's over 10 years. But you drive through that mud and stuff, you have to wash your car. There's no way to get out. Now, and the other company that's dumping in there is Fraunenberger. That's the 2 big ones, and there's probably 2 or 3 more smaller companies that come up and dump in there. I'm sorry, what?
So, Mr. Hertz, we have a 3-minute time limit, and I heard the dinger, and I think I've gotten the impression of your, I think we're hearing the concerns you have there.
That's it. Now, the city can't clean that with the street sweeper because it won't clean it up.
No, exactly.
And the street sweeper, he's not allowed to go east of Water Street. I hadn't been up our street since I've been there.
Well, I don't think we're going to find the answer to your problem tonight, but what we can do is make sure we get back in touch, appropriate people who have some good knowledge of the situation can get in contact with you. I see your address here. Can you leave with Mr. Taylor your some contact information?
7 Roberts.
Well, yes, sir. Do you have if you privately, if you could leave an email or a phone number?
Yes.
I'll give Bruce your phone number. I've got updates for you after this meeting.
Oh,
Okay.
I was wrong. Mr. Preston is.
Well, the solution's easy. The solution to the problem is easy.
Do you want to just say it real quick and then?
Send them a bill, just like I did my mother and father-in-law.
Oh, okay.
Because I paid the bill because my mother-in-law was a widow at the time and didn't have the money.
Okay. Well, we will, what I promise you is we will engage in more conversation after
Okay.
the meeting.
You know, I'd like to have it cleaned up before the rains come March and wash it away.
Okay. Well, thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you
the
for your
time.
time.
You bet. Thank you, sir. Okay. I think all we have at this point is an adjournment. Is there a motion, council, to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Preston? Ms. Randall, any discussion? All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for your time.